Dr. Martin Rodbell, inducted in the Navy in May of 1944, separated June of 46. He was about to discover whether or not there was going to be an invasion or not.
How, you know, it was non-combative because you couldn't really carry a gun. And I guess that's the only way they could excuse themselves as my being in a non-combative situation. But anyhow, that was my life in the Navy for 2.5 years. And it was interesting only because I survived and saw a lot of different things. We went into the Philippines and I got malaria there, and very, very sick, terrible thing. And then when I was recovered, they put me on a ship, the oldest ship in the U.S. Navy, USS Whitney, which had wooden decks and all that. And you slept outdoors on hammocks that were strung up under the decks. And it had a 5-inch cannon that if it ever went off, the ship would have sunk. So, but it turned out it was a decoy because it had the Admiral of the 7th Fleet on it. And I think it was done purposefully because then they thought that the enemy would not dare drop a bomb on a thing as old as that. But all the other guys on this ship were yellow-colored because we were all had malaria. Somebody had gotten malaria in the early features of the war, right after Pearl Harbor, and we're still there with atropine color, yellow. So anyhow, that was an interesting experience. But then I went through a lot of different experiences in that, and it shifted. I finally wound up being on 5 different ships. But in any event, I received the message on board the ship in August, on that fateful day when Hiroshima was bombed, saying that some bomb had destroyed this city. And of course, I decoded that. And then when the Admiral saw that, the captain saw that, they said, "Oh, this is fantastic." And of course, it meant the end of the war, really, basically. And see, we were diverted from going to Japan as a result, and went to Korea instead. And we were the first. There were 7 of us, 7 or 8 of us, and we were the first actually to set foot on Korean soil in a small port city called Jinsen, which later on was changed to Incheon, which is where MacArthur landed forces in the Korean War. But I didn't know it at the time, and of course the Koreans had been under the foot of, so to speak, of the Japanese for something like 30 or 40 years, and they didn't know who we were, and were obviously a little scared. But after a couple of days there, it turned out it was fine. I had my first sake, which I didn't like, but then I was introduced one day by an elderly gentleman with a stovepipe hat, who beckoned me to come with him, and I did. It turns out that I was best man at the first Christian wedding that they had had in something like 30 or 40 years, because the Korean people were not allowed to practice any religion, as far as I know. But anyhow, there I was.